Good day, everyone. I am Jamaica D. Ispeda, a second-year BS Ed Social Studies student of Negros Oriental State University, Shatan Campus. This is Foundation of Special and Inclusive Education class. For today's video, I will be discussing a topic under Unit 2, Basis and Policies of Special and Inclusive Education, about the psychological basis, specifically Piaget's cognitive development and Albert Bandura's social learning theory. The objectives of this report is that at the end of the lesson, the student should be able to distinguish the characteristics of Piaget's cognitive development and Albert Bandura's social learning theory as a psychological basis of special and inclusive education. Create a graphic organizer about Piaget's cognitive development and Albert Bandura's social learning theory. Discuss the importance of Piaget's cognitive development and Albert Bandura's social learning theory. Psychological basis. The psychological basis of education is primarily deals on the human growth and development. It concerned primarily with understanding the processes of teaching and learning that takes place within formal environments and developing ways of improving those methods. John Piaget's cognitive development. Swiss psychologists who believe that cognitive growth occurred in 4 stages. Children's cognitive processes develop over time, develop in response to their environment, and are updated with exposure to new information. John Piaget's cognitive theory of development is truly a classic in the field of education psychology. This theory fueled other researchers and theories of development and learning. Its focus is on individuals' construct knowledge. Piaget was initially into biology and he had also a background in philosophy. Knowledge from both these disciplines influenced his theories and research of child development. Out of his researches, Piaget came up with the stages of cognitive development. Piaget examined the implications of his theory not only to aspects of cognition, but also to intelligence and moral development. His theory has been applied widely to teaching and curriculum design, especially in the preschool and elementary curricula. So here are the 4 cognitive development stages of John Piaget. Number 1, sensory motor stage. The sensory motor stage is the period of development from birth through age 2. During this initial phase of development, children utilize skills and abilities they were born with, such as looking, sucking, grasping, and listening, to learn more about the environment. In other words, infants and young children experience the world and gain knowledge through their senses and motor movements. Through trial and error, children discover more about the world around them. Piaget chose to call this stage the sensory motor stage because it is through the senses and motor abilities that infants gain a basic understanding of the world around them. The abilities that an infant is born with is sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, combined with physical capabilities that continue to develop, including touching, grasping, and tasting, allow infants to interact and build awareness of themselves and what is around them. As children interact with their environments, they go through an astonishing amount of cognitive growth in a relatively short period of time. The sensory motor stage lasts from birth to approximately age 2. Number 2, pre-operational stage. Piaget's stage that coincides with early childhood is the pre-operational stage. According to Piaget, this stage occurs from the age of 2 to 7 years. In the pre-operational stage, children use symbols to represent words, images, and ideas, which is why children in this stage engage in pretend play. A child's arms might become airplane wings as she zooms around the room, or a child with a stick might become a brave knight with a sword. Children also begin to use language in the pre-operational stage, but they cannot understand adult logic or mentally manipulate information. The term operational refers to logical manipulation of information, so children at this stage are considered pre-operational. Children's logic is based on their own personal knowledge of the world so far, rather than an conventional knowledge. Number 3, the concrete operational stage. The concrete operational stage is the third stage in Piaget's theory of cognitive development. This period lasts around 7 to 11 years of age and is characterized by the development of organized and rational thinking. In the concrete operational stage, children acquire the rudiments of logical reasoning and display skills of reversibility, decentration, and other skills of conservation. However, children in this stage can only solve problems if they apply them to actual objects or events. Children gain the abilities of conservation, such as number, area, volume, orientation, reversibility, seriation, transitivity, and class inclusion. However, although children can logically solve problems, they are typically not able to think abstractly or hypothetically. They cannot solve problems when they are in the abstract. Piaget considered the concrete stage a major turning point in the child's cognitive development because it marks the beginning of logical or operational thought. The child is mature enough to use logical thought or operations, example rules, but can only apply logic to physical objects, hence concrete operational. 4. Formal operational stage. The formal operational stage is the fourth and final stage of Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. It begins at approximately age 12 and lasts into adulthood. In the formal operational stage, children's thinking becomes much more sophisticated and advanced. Kids can think about abstract and theoretical concepts and use logic to come up with creative solutions to problems. Skills such as logical thought, deductive reasoning, and systematic planning also emerge during this stage. So now, let's move on to the social learning theory. Albert Bandura's social learning theory. Social learning theory proposed by Albert Bandura emphasizes the importance of observing, modeling, and imitating the behaviors, attitudes, and emotional reactions of others. Social learning theory considers how both environmental and cognitive factors interact to influence human learning and behavior. SLT processing or social learning theory processing. First is observation. Children observe the people around them behaving in various ways. Bandura's view stresses two important things, modeling and imitation. So, imitation. Children pay attention to some of these people or models and encode their behavior. At a later time, they may imitate the behavior they have observed. Next, modeling. Individuals that are observed are called models. In society, children are surrounded by many influential models such as parents within the family, characters in children's TV, friends with their peer group, and teachers at school. So here are the 4 phases of learning. Attention, the extent to which we are exposed or notice the behavior. For a behavior to be imitated, it has to grab our attention. We observe many behaviors on a daily basis, and many of these are not noteworthy. Attention is therefore extremely important in whether a behavior influences other imitating it. Retention, how well the behavior is remembered. The behavior may be noticed, but is it not always remembered, which obviously prevents imitation. It is important, therefore, that a memory of behavior is formed to be performed later by the observer. Much of social learning is not immediate, so this process is especially vital in those cases. Even if the behavior is reproduced shortly after seeing it, there needs to be a memory to refer to. Reproduction. This is the ability to perform the behavior that the model has just demonstrated. We see much behavior on a daily basis that we would like to be able to imitate, but that this not always possible. We are limited by our physical ability, and for that reason, even if we wish to reproduce the behavior, we cannot. This influences our decisions whether to try and imitate it or not. Imagine the scenario of a 90-year-old lady who struggles to walk watching dancing on ice. She may appreciate the skill is a desirable one, but she will not attempt to imitate it because she physically cannot do it. Motivation. The will to perform the behavior. The rewards and punishment that follow a behavior will be considered by the observer. If the perceived rewards outweigh the perceived costs, if there are any, then the behavior will be more likely to be imitated by the observer. If the vicarious reinforcement is not seen to be important enough to the observer, then they will not imitate the behavior. So here are the concepts of social learning theory. Learning theory describes how students absorb, process, and retain knowledge during learning. Cognitive, emotional, and environmental influences, as well as prior experience, all play part in how understanding or a worldview is acquired or changed and knowledge and skills retained. Number one, vicarious learning. Vicarious learning is a way of learning that allows individuals to learn from the experience of others. It is a conscious process that involves sensing, feeling, and empathizing with what people are doing and taking notes and evaluating. Rather than direct hands-on instructions, vicarious learning is derived from indirect sources such as hearing and seeing. Examples of indirect sources include when an individual sees or hears a live situation, watches a video, listens to a story, reads a book, or imagines a situation. And number two, self-regulated learning, or SRL. Self-regulated learning, or SRL, includes the cognitive, metacognitive, behavioral, motivational, and emotional or affective aspects of learning. It is therefore an extraordinary umbrella under which is considerable number of variables that influence learning are studied within a comprehensive and holistic approach. For that reason, SRL has become one of the most important areas of research within. So that's all about my topic about the psychological basis of Jean Piaget's cognitive development and Albert Bandura's social learning theory. I hope you learned something. Thank you.